All right. Do I have a video for you or what? This is going to be about the soul trap and how I have figured out what is going on through a deep spiritual and intuitive awakening that I had via my Kundalini rising. And on top of that, uh, just information just coming to me. I haven't really shared everything that I have been going through over the last few years, more than that. Um, you know, I mainly just came on here and made videos and I got straight to the point and I didn't really mention anything personally about me. I'm gonna talk about the topic and then maybe mention a few things about what I've been going through, but I'll keep it real brief though about that. But anyways, this is about the soul trap theory and how I have figured it out. Okay? Are you guys ready? Basically, what's going on down here is this is a Matrix simulation, okay? It is a simulated artificial reality, obviously. I mean, I think a lot of people have found that out already. Um, but there's some details here that really need to be addressed. So, first of all, in Gnostic texts, it talked about Sophia and the pleroma and how Sophia created the demiurge because she wanted to create something out of, that was away from the frequency of the pleroma because, I guess that they had always created within that realm, like her and the other aeons or eons, which just means beings that have existed for all of, eternity and whatever. Um, so she creates the demiurge, right? And then the demiurge rules over the earth, and then she puts her spark in certain humans, um, to combat the demiurge and all that. Now, what's actually going on down here is that the demiurge is the reptilian race, okay? The demiurge in the Gnostic text represents the reptilian bloodline that rules the planet down here. Um, they come in and out of the fourth dimension into the third dimension and back. I was also given that they go into the second dimension. There's only a handful of dimensions that they can go into, like they're pretty limited, but they think that they're all that in a bag of chips, but they're not. They cannot access anything past, I believe, the fourth dimension. I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that they can like simulate a fake fifth dimension, like the reincarnation light, the light at the end of the tunnel and all that. I think that that's their fake version of whatever the fifth dimension really is, because the fifth dimension and on up, there's many dimensions beyond the fifth dimension. But yeah, like there's a fake fifth dimension that they simulate to trap your soul down here. So where did the reptilian come from? Well, basically, the pleroma has to do with the beings from the sun, the children of the sun. If you've ever heard of the story of the children of the sun, there's a story out there about the children of the sun and the reptilian bloodline and how when the reptilian is born or incarnates, at some point they remember what they are, or some type of memory comes into their brain somehow or whatever through their DNA, whatever. And they remember that they are a reptilian or that they are some type of lower level fourth dimensional being, because I do believe there's more than just the reptilians down here, but the reptilians and the amphibians and all that, the lizard family, like they're the main ones down here. So what's going on is this is a game. This is a Matrix game simulation for the children of the sun. Okay? The aeons in the Gnostic texts are the children of the sun, and it's kind of like how Sophia created the demiurge. Well, the children of the sun created the reptilian bloodline to play this game with them. Okay? So the reptilian bloodline is basically like a very low dimensional, low frequency consciousness that's almost AI. They might even be fully AI. And I remember Anne-Marie Eber was talking about the reptilians were AI and all that. And so that makes sense. Back then, I couldn't connect the dots and it didn't make sense. I was like, how the hell would a reptilian bloodline or this ancient race of, these highly advanced amphibian, lizard, whatever beings, how could they be AI? But it makes sense now because they can only reside within lower dimensions. They can't access the higher dimensions, and they lack the solar light of the sun. So there are humans down here that have the light of the sun within them, okay? And there are also other people down here that look like people, okay? Just like the children of the sun, but they are part of the reptilian bloodline and they do not have access to the higher solar light. They're cut off from it. So they're stuck in the lower emotions of fear and anger and apathy and shame and all that. But they feed off of that. And they try to manipulate the children of the sun, to get in their lower emotions and stay there. And if you wake up and start raising your frequency, they start attacking you and gang stalking you and doing all that stuff, like all that targeted individual stuff, the gang stalking stuff. If you've ever heard of gang stalking, that's what's going on. The reptilian bloodline does that to try to shut you up and to try to lower your frequency and even try and kill you once your frequency has been lowered enough. Because if you raise your frequency too high, you have a huge chance of destroying them or overriding them or whatever. Like, if your frequency gets too high, you can take over this whole planet, okay? And that's what was downloaded to me during a very powerful Kundalini experience where my energy rose and my chakras opened up and I was given access to higher energy, higher solar energy, okay? And I mean, this even blew my mind when, this was downloaded to me, but there's more though. There's more. Um, so our chakras, like for me, I am one of the children of the sun, for lack of a better term, or I am a being from one of the higher dimensions and all that. And I have higher light within me, okay? I thrive in peace and joy and, love and, a neutral space and, all that, all those higher emotions, courage, all that. Okay, that's where I thrive. Um, I used to have issues where, I was stuck in my lower emotions and, I didn't thrive. I was contracted, I was restricted, and it messed up my energy a lot. But I was ignorant to what was really going on. I was asleep and I just thought, oh, I'm crazy, or oh, I just got problems or whatever. But that wasn't it. So, but basically, these reptilians don't have that higher light within them. So, you know, they lack that. And that means that they lack empathy. They lack, really showing real genuine love. It's like they have this ability to show fake love or to show fake compassion or to be a great actor. Like that's basically all they're doing down here is they're acting and they're holding this simulation and keeping it going for the children of the sun because we created them. Okay. This is the story of Sophia in Gnostic texts is symbolic. It's like the greatest symbolic version of what's actually really going on. Okay. So just replace Sophia with the children of the sun and replace the demiurge with the reptilian bloodline. And that's what's going on down here. That's it, man. So where does the soul trap come in? Well, basically when a human that has the solar light in them or a child of the sun, when they can't raise their frequency or they're ignorant of raising their frequency and they die, then these reptilian beings simulate the artificial afterlife matrix of, the fake love and light and all that, and they get trapped and you get sent back here, basically. And depending on how ignorant you are or whatever of what was going on, You may end up in a horrible family situation. You may get abused. Who knows? Okay. Um, yeah, this is a crazy game that we're playing. And the only thing I can say is the reason why higher beings would create something like this to put themselves in to experience all this drama and trauma and all this stuff that's going on down here is because basically when we are in higher dimensions, and you know, the pleroma and all that and higher frequencies, like everything's perfect there. Everything's like, you know, just great. It's like paradise 24/7. And so eventually you get bored of paradise and you want to experience the opposite of that. So we created these simulations. This ain't the only one. There's billions of simulations that are similar to this, some that are not anything like this, but yeah, that was the point of this. And so the eons or the aeons of the Gnostic texts are the children of the sun, or higher dimensional beings, higher frequency beings, and that's basically who's in charge of the cosmos. Like, you know, the higher beings of the real light, um, and consciousness, or whatever you want to call that, are the ones that created all this. And I'm a part of that cluster. Okay. So, um, yeah, like, so those beings are like, you know, their own infinite cluster. And then the reptilian bloodline is its own cluster. But they are on lower dimensions. They're a hive mind, parasitic, um, low frequency, AI like, or even straight up AI consciousness, basically. And they're not the only ones, okay? There's the reptilians, there's the amphibians, the same beings that attacked Kyle Odom. And then you got the mantis beings, and then you got, you know, larvae beings and insects and bumblebees and all kind of stuff in the lower fourth dimensional astral realms and third dimensional, you know, astral realm as well. And so this is crazy. Now you can see, at least to me, like, it was crazy, you know, when I first was dealt this information, but it was based on what I was going through. I really haven't shared what all I was going through with everyone, you know, because I didn't really think it mattered. I just came on here and talked about the soul trap. And then I got a deeper understanding, you know, because I really had, you know, suffered a lot of stupid stuff. And I was targeted by these reptilian beings for talking about chemtrails and talking about certain things on, you know, my Facebook page and in real life back in like 2018 and before. And they started targeting me in 2019 with gang stalking. And, you know, basically gang stalking is when groups of people show up and they do all these weird things, loud conversations in public. These people drive by making noises. They stare at you. You know, they try to irritate you, try to piss you off, or they try to make you scared and intimidate you. It's all the lower frequency energy. They're just trying to drain your energy. And for many years, I couldn't figure out why these people were doing this to me. In the very beginning, I did believe that I was being gang stalked by reptilians. But I tried to forget that because that shit can drive you crazy, you know, after a while, when you go from having a normal life and then all of a sudden you get targeted, you know, because you said something you weren't supposed to say. Okay. Yeah, that can drive you a little batty. And so that's what happened to me. I got targeted for saying and talking about things that I shouldn't have, or at least to these beings I shouldn't have. But now that I know that this is a game simulation and that they're AI or AI like, and that they're low frequency and they're inferior to me and from where I come from, you know, I don't take it as serious. But this information needs to be put out there because somebody is going to, you know, watch this and need to hear this, because this is something that could help a lot of higher beings that may be asleep but are looking for that, you know, little bit of information that can help them connect the rest of the dots. They may have seen some weird stuff and they just can't connect the dots properly because, you know, they may be heavily distracted with their life or whatever's going on in their life, or girlfriend or whatever. You know, so, but yeah, I was what you'd call a targeted individual. I just never talked about it on this channel, not a whole lot. I think I might have mentioned it once a year ago, but I didn't really put me in the situation. I just mentioned something about you can be targeted for talking about, certain things. So, so here's the indicator right here that the reptilian bloodline is trying to get rid of the children of the sun, or trying to, well, they really are draining our energy. That's basically what reptilians are. They're energy vampires. They're parasites. Same with the amphibians, the same beings that attack Kyle Odom. They're parasites as well. And if Kyle Odom could have figured this out, like, he would have saved himself from being mind manipulated. Okay, because I figured it out. And hey, well, maybe I can do Kyle Odom a favor, even though he may never see this video. Kyle Odom, I'm sorry for what happened to you, bro, but yeah, I got this. So, but okay, so you can tell, like, back to my point, you can tell that what I'm saying is true because you got the children of the sun and the reptilian bloodline, and then they are the ones that chemtrail the sky and try to block the sun. There's a reason why they're trying to block the sun, and then they say, oh, it's global warming, global warming is, this thing that's going to happen, so we got to chemtrail the sun. Now, there may be some truth to global warming. I think that, I mean, because that's what they call it. They're not going to actually call it what it is, because then everybody will wake up and then they lose all their power. So they have to play games. Um, so, but basically, you could say that there's a type of global warming going on because right now, and as of the last 20 years or so, or something like that, um, the sun has been like trying to raise the frequency of the planet and wake up those that come from the realm of the sun. And I wouldn't have found this information. I wouldn't have had a Kundalini experience where my solar light and my chakras rose and I got all this information. I got way more than this, but I'm just going to specifically share this because you can't just give out too much information. But I know a lot. Okay, I know a lot just from my energy rising. And so this I will say, if there's anybody out there where you feel like the people around you might be siphoning your energy, or you're tired all the time, or you're confused, or you just can't figure things out, what I'm saying may be what's going on in your life. And you may just need to get out in the sun more, sun gaze, meditate in the sun, and you need to raise your vibrational frequency, and you need to change a lot of the things and a lot of the ways of, how you used to be and what you were used to doing, especially if it brings you down. If you listen to certain music and it triggers your anger, or it triggers low vibrational energy and stuff in you, then you probably should just let it go, because they're using that to drain your energy anyways. We're all surrounded by these reptilian beings. Okay, they got us herded. Okay, I don't know when the last time was that I actually saw a genuine human with solar light in them, because you can tell there's just a difference. It's like you know when there's somebody with real authentic empathy and peace and love inside of them, versus a fake simulated uh peace and love, or somebody just putting on a front. Okay, that's basically what's going on here. The reptilian bloodline fronts a lot, but the real solar beings, we're just genuine. We just are this higher frequency, and left to our own devices, okay, we would just be in a high frequency all the time. We would never experience fear or anger. It's the reptilian bloodline that we put here so we could experience that. And to be honest, I believe that higher dimensional beings have to do it this way, because we just are naturally so high frequency that we need something like the reptilian bloodline to be put in this simulation so our frequency can be lowered to a certain point, because I don't think higher beings can really lower their frequency like that. So they had to create this simulation. So once you look at this as a game, it's kind of like, all right, I get it. It makes sense. And, it is what it is. But if you're trying to wake up, this is the info you need to be getting into. And then I challenge you, why don't you have a Kundalini experience and have a chakra energy awakening, you know? Start doing the work that I did and see what happens. See if you get this information as well. This is to, only the you know, the solar beings out there, or whoever's a higher dimensional being having a human experience right now. This isn't to any parasite out here that might be watching my channel, but I know that there probably are a lot of parasites, a lot of reptilians that, have flocked to my channel because I was talking about the soul trap, and, I was talking about all that low frequency stuff and talking about boxing my way out of it and all that. And they love that. Oh yeah, come and fight us, come and engage with us. That's not what you do. So you die. When you die, you really need to be on a high frequency, and depending on how high you raise your frequency, you may not even experience physical death, or you may go through a portal, or you may just ascend out of here. They talk about ascension a lot. That may be a real thing, but they're trying to mislead you about it. Notice how all these weird people on YouTube with their poker faces and their robot expressions are talking about ascension all the time. See, a lot of people that are talking about this ascension stuff are reptilians, okay? And they're trying to mislead you on what it really is. You ascend back into the sun, into the frequency of the sun. That's why it's in the sky. You go up into the sun. And actually, the sun in the sky is just a reflection, because it looks exactly the same as how it reflects on your camera when you look at it in real life in the sky. It's reflecting off the dome, okay? All right? So that lets you know that the black sun is what we're actually talking about. The sun in the sky, the light sun, is the black sun's reflection, okay? So yeah, these reptilians are cut off from that. They can only access the fourth dimension, the third dimension. Now, there are portals that go in and out of the earth. There is a couple portals that go inside the earth that lead to the fourth dimension. So the fourth dimension is inside the earth, and the third dimension is the surface of the earth. The fifth dimension is beyond the clouds and into the cosmos. And then the sixth and seventh is even beyond that. Okay, because we're dealing with infinity here, okay? So once you go high enough out of a reality, it's just infinity. There's no end to it, but you have to be a higher being to be able to access that, okay? See, because I remember several people, like, they had certain experiences on DMT and whatever else, a dream. I remember one guy, he said that he was a white guy, and he thought it was because, he was white and he had ended up somewhere where, the souls were black or something like that, or who had existed before they died. But anyways, he was rejected at the gates of this place and couldn't enter and couldn't go in past the gates. Now he said, oh, it was because of these black people who had died or whatever. I forgot exactly what he said. But now looking back on that, I think what it was is because these beings were higher beings, and he was part of the reptilian bloodline, so he couldn't enter those gates. I also heard another story of somebody being rejected at some gate within the universe, okay? So not everybody gets to go to certain realms, okay? You stay where you're supposed to be. Now, can that change? Can a lower being turn into a higher frequency being if it wants to? Possibly. That hasn't been confirmed through any spiritual downloads from me, but yeah, possibly. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know. So yeah, and then there was some guy who did DMT, and he ended up in a realm with these other entities, and they told him, you don't belong here, and they kicked him out the dimension, and he ended up back in his body. So you got to know what you're dealing with out here. You got to know that there are forces out here, and there are realms out here that some people can access and some people cannot. Okay, so how are the reptilians coming into the third and fourth dimension? Or I'm sorry, into the third dimension from the fourth dimension? Well, basically they have portals, and I believe it started with body snatching. So they started body snatching a lot of humans. There are a lot of human vessels down here that Um, you could say they're soulless, okay? And basically what that means is like it's an empty vessel that is just kind of on autopilot. And I believe that the reptilian comes from the fourth dimension, and they can hijack that empty vessel that's already empty, that don't really have nothing but just, you know, enough conscious energy to function as a person, or what looks like a person. And these reptilians come and they can hijack those, you know, hollow avatars, so to speak. Now that's not the only way they do it. I do believe that they can. Uh, I'm not sure if they can body snatch a higher being. It's probably possible if the higher being is on a low frequency and doesn't wake up, or has like alcohol and drug problems or something like that. It's possible. Um, they really do have high level technology, these reptilians, although it's on a low frequency. So it's like it only operates well if you're on that frequency, or if they can lower your energy to be on that frequency and get you all scrambled. But it's very sophisticated technology, even though it's low frequency. And so, um, because they're so highly advanced, you know, they might have been able to create some fake holographic skin suits. You know, it may be true that they manipulated some human DNA because they're parasites. If you think about it, they have to parasite off of a higher energy. Okay, as a lower energy parasite, they have to parasite off of higher energy. They have to drain higher energy. They have to chase after higher energy. It's just like how bugs chase after us. Like a mosquito chases after your blood, and you have to smack him or swat him or spray him, or, you know, dodge or evade. You know, same thing as how a fly tries to land on you and get a taste, or a bee tries to come near you and sting you, or whatever. Yeah, it's just like that. That's what they do. They're, you know, they're parasitical insect, reptilian, amphibian consciousness, and that's what they do. And they try to bring your energy down so they can feed on, you know, more of that fear energy. And they have technology that can generate that fear energy, but I think that they need a higher being to pull from to even be able to do that, you know? So, yeah. It's a lot going on down here, man. It really is. But basically, that's basically it. Because I made some notes. Reptilian body snatchers, third, fourth dimension, soul trap, AI, Sophia, soulless beings, chemtrails. But yeah, this is a game simulation for higher dimensional beings. We put the reptilian race here to challenge us. It's basically the game of raise your vibration. That's basically what it is. Everybody starts out on a low vibrational frequency. The higher beings, and of course the reptilian bloodline. And as time goes on, you know, the higher beings, or the source players, or whatever you want to call it, because that's what some people used to refer to it as. There were other people talking about this stuff. I remember one lady, she was like 50 or something like that, and I forgot her name, but she always used to talk about the source player game. That there are some people down here that are source players playing this game, and I never used to get that. I was like, what is she talking about? Source players, like, but I get it now that I've had my Kundalini awakening and all that. And that's another thing, like, I know that I primarily talked about the soul trap and all that, you know, and I was never going to come on here and talk about um you know, like raising your vibration and all that, because they talk about that a lot in the new age community, but it's actually true. Okay, there are some things that they mention in the new age community that are true. All right, and so raising your vibration is true. It's a real thing that you should be doing if you recognize that you're a higher being, or you're one with the sun and all that. So yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell. Um, So this reptilian bloodline is a low frequency parasite. Same with the amphibians and whoever else is in the fourth dimension, whatever else is in the fourth dimension. Um, and they parasite off higher energy, and they've been put here to be a parasite for higher beings to, try and win the game or whatever. And I don't even know what happens once you raise your vibration to a certain point. I think maybe the whole planet changes, or maybe the sun starts getting rid of the reptilians. Maybe they have to go back underground, because that's supposedly where they came from. And there are other variations of them coming from another star system and all that. But once you wake up enough, you realize, especially if you're a higher being, you realize that the cosmos is within you. Star systems are within you. Okay, so you as a higher being, you have your chakras are stargates. Okay, and that can be access to higher realms, to access higher realms and all that. Now, if you're not using your chakras properly, your stargates can be accessed by these reptilians and by lower dimensional beings, and you can be possessed and maybe even body snatched. And I believe that that's how they can body snatch a higher being. That would have to be the only way that, since we all start off on a low frequency, and you have to have a spiritual awakening if you're a higher being. That's only for higher beings. Like a reptilian is not going to have a spiritual awakening. A reptilian knows it's a parasite. All right. So the heck, they start the game off knowing what they are. And even the children of these reptilians know what they are. Like, it's crazy. My Kundalini experience has caused me to be able to see them in real time. And the gang stalking that I've been going through also showed me that you beat this with peace. You raise your frequency to where you get into a peaceful state, and they can't stand it. They even will start to malfunction. You'll even start to see through their little holographic veil, and you'll see, this reptilian parasite monstrosity, okay, like start to, unfold. It's like you'll still see them look partially human, but it's like something else is there. Their eyes start getting dark, their skin, the energy is just off. It's weird, man. But yeah, they can't stand it. And another thing is the whole gang stalking thing, where those of you who have listened to people talk about, that stuff in the targeted individuals community, well, they talk about, directed energy weapons being used on them, and frequency weapons and dream manipulation and all this stuff. Well, that stuff is true. Okay, these parasites have technology that can do that can manipulate your energy, your mood, your mind. They can project thoughts into your head. They can mess with you. Only if they can get you on a low frequency. Now, they can try and bother you when you're on a high frequency, but if you're on too high of a frequency, their whole technology shuts down. I've seen this in real life. I've been gang stalked by these beings for 7 years, okay? And they literally tried to unalive me, but they couldn't do it because I have that higher solar light in me, and I was able to recognize it and have my spiritual awakening. Although I've had other awakenings where I woke up to the world, but this was like unlike anything before that I had ever experienced. So basically, that's it in a nutshell. We created the reptilian bloodline so that we could come down into the third dimension and play with them and have them come out of the fourth dimension to challenge us. And that's basically it, man. Like, yeah, but they're everywhere. Like, they're all around you, and they got the sun beings all scattered. So especially if, they're targeting you, like, it's hard for me to recognize who else is out here that may be a child of the sun or a higher dimensional being. They try to, herd you away from the rest of the pack, especially when you wake up. But yeah, I even recognized a little girl that was out here with her mom, and she was staring at me like a predator would stare at its prey. And, I was just like taken back, like, man, it was strange. It was really strange. And I stared at the girl for a while, just trying to see what she was thinking. And she kept looking at me and looking down and looking around and looking back at me. And she frowned at me. And this little girl was only like 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old. And I'm like, What is going on here, man? Like, these beings are being born as children. They are being born every day, just like, you know, normal people are born. These beings are coming into the third dimension like nobody's tomorrow. But I think that they've caused enough damage down here, and I think that they had, too much fun, and I think that it's time for them to lose control, at least 60 or 70% of that control, or maybe even 80 or 90, or maybe even 100. Maybe they need to be ran back underneath the earth for a season, maybe like 1,000 years or something, and then they can be let back out to do whatever it is that we allow them to do. So, yeah, but they basically have manipulated the Bible. They made up the Bible. Jesus is about the sun in the sky, okay? You know how the sun rises, and then you got the 3-day winter solstice and all that. And so basically, the story of the devil or the demiurge is the reptilian. The story of Christ or Christos or the aeons or the pleroma is, that's about the higher beings, the children of the sun. And so the return of Christ is actually the return of the frequency of the sun, the solar light coming to, take over the planet again. And I don't know when exactly that's going to happen. I mean, they got a lot of agendas out here. Agenda 2030. They're pushing AI real hard. It almost seems like they are trying to have the planet on lockdown as far as what you can do and what you can't do, and especially with politics. And then we got the war going on. That's just more energy harvesting for these energy vampire reptilians. But yeah, if you are a solar being of light, all you got to do is raise your vibration. And I would say do it before they start targeting you, because then you'll have a greater advantage. Like, I had to raise my vibration while being targeted, and that shit wasn't fun. That was very lame. So, but yeah, these reptilians are soulless, okay? And now, like I said, it's a twofold thing. They body snatch certain people, but then these reptilians can make their own human bodies. They have the technology to, and they can even come out of the fourth dimension and be born through a human. Sometimes they're even born through a human of light, just so that they can be there and parasite off that human of light. So there may be like a human of solar light, a higher dimensional being in human form that has a reptilian child, might marry a reptilian man or woman, have a reptilian child. You see what I'm saying? Or maybe they don't marry a reptilian, and somehow a reptilian child or seed still comes out of them somehow. And it's just because of this game that we're playing. But these beings have been allowed to mingle with our DNA and hijack the incarnation system or the reincarnation system or whatever you want to call it. Because I do believe that system used to be different, and now it's what it is because of these beings. So, but that's what it is, man. Like, this is a game. It's a simulation. Okay, that's why they talk about that all the time. Earth is a simulation, or even scientists and people talk about, they found, these codes, and these numbers that reality is made out of, and that, it appears to be a simulation, and oh, what if we're in a simulation, and all this and that. So that's really what's going on. That is it. And we're down here playing the game of hide and seek and raise your vibration with these reptilian beings, basically. And so when they did what they did to Kyle Odom, they only were able to do that because they lowered his frequency to such a point to where they drove him insane. They tried to do the same thing to me, but I'm not easy to drive insane, okay? And I know how to be grounded, and I know when I recognize a trap, okay? And they just weren't able to get me. That's basically it. And there were times where they were close, where I was close to wanting to punch somebody in the mouth or you know, just slap several people and go to jail or whatever. But that's what they wanted. So, but this is a hell of a game. Now that I realize that this is a game for higher beings, it's great. I've even learned how to shut down the gang stalking in real life just by being confrontational peace. They don't know how to handle that when they come at you all aggressive, or they try to play these games or shoot frequencies at you and all that. They don't know what to do when you react with peace and you remain in a high frequency. You know, they try all these manipulative things with their technology. Everything that they do is fake, okay? Everything that you see on the TV as far as politics and movies and TV shows, obviously we know that's acting, but these beings literally don't have a single ounce of authenticity, okay? Everything that they do is fake and simulated. They are a fake AI parasite simulation, all right? So, you know, just think of everything you've seen in your life, and this is for higher beings that might be watching this video. Everything that you've seen in your life, let's say you're like 30 years old, okay? So that's enough time for you to have seen a couple decades worth of, you know, life experience, you know, by the time you got to 30. So everything that you experience, majority of that, minus like the few authentic beings that, you know, you might have bumped into, 95% of what you experience, 90%, whatever, is fake, okay? There's only a small window that's real, and that has to do with the higher beings that are here. But the rest of this shit is just a fake simulation, fake AI, reptilian, amphibian simulation. It's a game, okay? And you just got to wake up and raise your vibration. And once you do that, then you'll start to get more information about what's going on down here like I did. But you won't unless you do the work. It's just as simple as what it is. And so, but yeah, I'm looking at my notes right now. I believe I touched up on everything. Like, this is probably the longest video that I'm ever going to do on this channel. I just needed to get this information out because I do have like another YouTube channel. Actually, I have a couple, but I'm still in the process of growing them. And so, you know, this channel at Secrecy Concealed obviously has a decent enough following to where, you know, I can put this out and it's going to get some views. I want somebody to see this who needs to see it, and I just have this feeling who needs to see it will see it. If you can't watch this video all the way through, please try to, or come back to this video and try to watch it all the way through. But anyways, that's basically it. This is a game for higher beings. The reptilians are a parasite AI. You need to raise your vibration and match the frequency of the sun in human form. And they are blocking the sun because you are a child of the sun, and they're not trying to have the children of the sun wake up and take over the planet. They're trying to keep the frequency low. They will soul trap you if you die in a low frequency and you're a higher being. They will gang stalk you and try to drive you crazy like they did Kyle Odom if you wake up and have a spiritual awakening that's profound enough to challenge their authority. And now I have had that awakening. And even back when I had lesser, you know, awakenings, somehow that still got me targeted. And of course, talking about reptilians and chemtrail, because I did do that. I talked with coworkers and all that, and like years ago, back in like 2018, about chemtrails and gang stalking. Little did I know some of them were reptilians, and they were pissed off because I was talking about that, so they decided to target me. But yeah, these beings can't survive outside of the frequency of anger and fear and lower frequencies, so they literally will start to die, malfunction, and get sick and get tired and lack energy if your frequency is too high around them. It shuts down all their technology. They have this technology that's really powerful and can zap you and do all this frequency stuff. They can track you. They can listen in on what you're doing. They communicate with each other on these phones, and they communicate telepathically. They're a hive mind AI parasite, so you may see one of them or two of them and all that, but they can all activate at the same time and start gang stalking you and driving you crazy. They're all telepathic, so it's like one united cluster that looks like a group of people, but they're all like a wave, okay? It's like a wave of a hive mind of 1,000 people, you know? Just picture that. It's insane. And they're all parasite, like humans and shit. Parasitic, like, no. It's insane. But This is the truth right here. Um, this is profound stuff. You're not going to hear this from anybody else. And so, yeah, I hope that you got something out of this. I'm going to end it here before I end up rambling on and on more. But yeah, this is a game simulation, and you got to raise your vibration to see through the veil, and then you will see the enemy all around you, manipulating you, trying to get you to be other than your authentic high vibrational self. And so if you find this video and you've been questioning your life and you've been feeling like that you've had a struggle with things, just know that you have, but all you got to do is do the work to raise your vibration. So that's meditate, get out in the sun, sit in the sun, even lay in the sun when it's, like 75, 80 degrees. Or if you can't handle 80 degrees, 65, 70 degrees. If it's sunny and blue sky, go and lay in the sun, man. Start thinking thoughts that make you happy. Start picturing being with your loved ones and, having an animal that makes you happy or whatever raises your vibration. Listen to music on top of that. You can take a multi-dimensional approach at this. And eventually you'll start to feel your energy rise, and you may even have a Kundalini experience. And once you have that, you're going to get all the information you need straight from your solar being, straight from your stargates, okay? Back from where you came from the sun and beyond into the black sun and beyond that into infinity. So I hope this helps somebody, and thank you for listening.